Hello, I'm Xander Freeman, Digital Content Director at Call Center Helper. I'm delighted to be hosting another one of our webinars. Today, we're talking about innovations that make the contact center better. And as I mentioned previously, I'm so happy to be joined by two really interesting panelists today who I think will bring some really interesting insights for what is, by definition, quite a broad topic. First off, we've got Paul Wield, Contact Center Innovator. Paul, hello.
Yes, hello there, Xander, and welcome to today's session. 30 years experience in everything to do with contact center management. I've seen the whole cyclical nature of technology and customer focus improvements, and keen to share what I've learned today.
Amazing. And again, Paul, thank you for joining us. You've done so many webinars with Call Center Helper. Like I say, I think you're a perfect fit for today's topic. And I'm also joined by Laura Ball, CX AI lead for EMEA at Zoom. Laura, hello.
Hi, Xander. Thank you. Really happy to be here and joining yourself and Paul in this discussion today. Spent the last 15 plus years of my career in customer experience in one way or another, whether that be contact centers, in the retail branches, all the variances in ways that customer experience touch consumers from a brand perspective. So hopefully can share some valuable insights and a little bit of education around how we think about some of that here at Zoom.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, again, the reason why we're having this conversation with the two of you specifically, I think if you look at Paul's extensive history, specifically within the contact center industry and the innovations he's seen over the years and what's on the horizon, combined with Zoom's innovation over the last 12 months alone, I think you two are perfectly placed to discuss today's topic.
Cool.
So without further ado, just a little bit of housekeeping from our side. As always with Call Center Helper webinars, we do love when you guys get involved. Me personally, it's my favorite part of our webinars is hearing what our audience has to say, tips and tricks from their contact centers. You can do so by clicking on the chat icon at the bottom and then typing in to our chats. So please do get involved. We love to hear what you have to say. And again, as always, replay and slides will be available later today. And just one extra bit there, as always with a Call Center Helper webinar, we do have a gift card available for the best tip that comes in. You can get involved by typing in hashtag question or hashtag tip into our chat. We've got several people from Call Center Helper standing by to help, and we have two expert panelists on hand here. So like always, we will be answering your questions and tips as they come in after each presentation. Please get involved. So, without wasting any time, Paul, you're first up today. So, without further ado, I believe we've got a poll ready to go. So, let me quickly launch that from my side. Here we are. So, the audience should be able to see that now. What's the biggest challenge you need to overcome to be able to innovate in your contact center? Is it no senior buy-in to the need to change, lack of budget, not enough resources, ineffective tools and technology, or too busy operationally firefighting? Paul, what do you expect to see?
So we pose this question not to be negative, but just to kind of frame the barriers and the challenges when it comes to wanting to be able to sort of innovate. And if you can navigate your way through these issues, then you're kind of clearing a path to be able to, you know, to do the things that are going to make things better for the customer and also for your own organization.
Yeah, I mean, that's for again what could be quite a broad topic. You've hit the nail on the head there. If I tell you what, end this poll, because ultimately it's gone the exact direction I hoped it would go. If I share these results with the audience, 44% the clear winner, showing a lack of budget. Paul, I'm mainly saying that because you, in the past 12 months, have written an amazing article on Call Center Helper about how to get more budget for your contact center, which I've just seen one of my helpful assistants has put in the chat as well. So there we go.
Okay, cool. There we
Webinar
go.
reading for people.
There we go. So yeah, so that hinges around having a clear business case and having a business problem to solve, and then working through the people, process, technology elements, to actually sort of do that.
Exactly. So, Paul, without further ado, I think I'll hand over to you, and you can take us away with your presentation.
Cool. So I'll just bring up my my presentation. So innovations that make the contact center better. I think this is worthwhile starting with a definition, and that is, what do we mean by business innovation? And Harvard Business Review have a very useful definition, which is around something that is both novel and useful, whether that applies to a product, a service, or a kind of business model. They also make a very clear distinction between those things that are very much within the gift of the audience and the contact center operators to be able to influence, which is very much around things like upgrading service processes and technologies, as compared to something that is more of a marketing and business model challenge, which is about actually being disruptive, i.e. trying to challenge the status quo of an existing market leader. And today we're going to focus down on the first type of innovation, because I think that actually frames quite nicely some of the things that are going to be within the gift of the audience to influence. If you want to do the latter and be more disruptive, then things like design thinking are a very good way to go. But I think that's a topic for a separate webinar. So if we take that definition around how do you improve the customer service processes and technologies, then the current areas where there is a lot of innovation going on tend to be around the areas of how can you make it easier for customers to help themselves by actually automating through things like chatbots. We're going to hear a lot from Laura later in the session about the role of Gen AI. And I'm a big fan that if the more you can support agents in terms of being able to make their job easier and do it better, then that's kind of sort of technology for good. Also, I think we're seeing a greater reliance on using data to provide insight. And that's really to arm our agents to understand and predict what types of issues are going to be presented to them, and potentially to find different ways to sort of interact. And that interaction is increasingly becoming personalized. So having a better understanding around customers' preferences and past behaviors is a way to actually make sure that you match their expectations. Importantly, there's some good evidence from the industry around the difference that being an early adopter of innovations like Gen AI can actually provide. So the source of this is a survey by Deloitte Digital. In a past life, I've done quite a lot of work with Deloitte teams, so I know that this is a strong piece of research. And what they show is that those businesses that implement Gen AI have seen a between 15 and 20% uplift in some of the outcomes that those businesses are trying to achieve. So improved customer effort, more productive agents, greater success of deflecting the lower value contacts to self-serve, and actually the utilization of agents doing the appropriate tasks. Those are all things that Gen AI is delivering better outcomes for those particular businesses. So how do we actually get to a place where we can start to understand where we should start to innovate? And I think we need to have a lens of understanding about data. And if any of you saw Xander's post yesterday on LinkedIn, he commented that he liked the fact that we were going to be talking about World War II in this particular webinar. So this is the reference, and that is that data's not, or the use of data is not new. It's something that in the Second World War, when planes were returning to the UK, they were checking for where the damage had actually occurred on those planes. And the conventional thinking was that what you should be doing is looking to apply additional armor on those places that are most damaged. But an analyst and a scientist called Abraham Walt pointed out that actually it was the data that they didn't have that was the key to understanding how to improve the survivability of the fleet. And actually he said, why don't we put armor plating on those parts of the plane where there is no damage? His logic being that that was the reason that the planes didn't come back. And you know what? He was right. So that single action alone of inverting how data is applied was a significant benefit to the Air Force and the armed forces all those years ago. And it was a phenomenon the scientists called survivorship bias. Now, we don't have that type of bias in contact centers, but we do have our own types of bias. So whether you're doing quality assessments by sampling agent interactions, or whether you're doing voice of the customer surveys, the risk is that if you've only got a few percentage points in terms of the survey response rate, then you're introducing bias, volunteer bias with surveys, and sampling bias with those interactions from a quality perspective. And this is where the latest technologies that actually allow you to look at 100% of interactions through Gen AI, giving you transcription of phone calls, giving you an understanding of being able to analyze, filter, and search on the intent and the dialogue that happen between customers and agents. That's giving you a much more comprehensive data set and is allowing you then to start to think about how you can make improvements. So how do you then start to frame that in terms of implementation activities? This is where I would encourage you to think about having multidisciplinary teams. So the buzzword is kind of create a squad. So in my current project, we're actually looking at some end-to-end improvements associated with some new front-end technology that's being implemented. So I'm the business process owner, and I have colleagues from marketing and sales and operations and distribution and finance and risk, and we're operating as a multidisciplinary team, and we're looking to actually use data to identify opportunities to improve, and that's therefore going to deliver the return on investment that our stakeholders are looking for. How are we going to do it? Well, we're going to start to do some test and learn. So a series of incremental changes that allow us to be able to quickly identify improvements and actually test whether they work or not. And again, we're going to use metrics and reporting to basically make sure that the impacts that we want to see are actually being observed in the sort of real world. And if not, that's okay. We'll just tweak and adapt in order to make a different set of improvements. So how that gets operationalized in terms of a continuous improvement approach is that, first of all, you need to be very clear on the problem that you're trying to fix. So in other words, don't try and generically change everything. Break it down into a series of chunks, identify a particular problem statement, and then actually gather some evidence, some data that identifies how you might improve that. And that solution might be processes and procedural change. It might be applying new technology, and that particularly if you're looking at kind of digital and sort of self-serve. And then as you start to think about implementing that solution to the problem, you need to have some success criteria. And any good project manager out there would know that it's also worth having an appropriate understanding of risk. So what are the potential downsides? What are the unintended consequences that you would want to actually sort of check for? So in terms of a takeaway for you today, this is a methodology that I have refined over the years, and it works from left to right. And that is that you're looking to have a hopper, a significant number of potential opportunities that are addressing particular pain points. Whether that's about the customer experience, whether it's about reducing cost to serve, whether it's about driving higher degrees of satisfaction and sort of advocacy. And you're using potentially AI, if you've got access to it, to utilize call summaries and intents to be able to get a much greater understanding, a more granular understanding of what's behind those issues and the kind of root causes that you solve for. And then you take those opportunities into a multidisciplinary environment where you start to brainstorm how you might solve those problems, and you look to craft a particular solution, ideally with data that can evidence before and after the changes actually made. And then when you action the change, it will depend on what the solution is as to whether that's something that you can do just through a champion challenger approach, which is more policy or procedure based, where you're giving one team in the contact center, a new way of doing things, and then you're measuring what the differences are between them and the control group, which is the kind of legacy way. And once you see that improvement validated and confirmed, you can then roll it out from there. If this is more related around a digital enhancement, particularly if you're going down the route of looking at online or app-based improvements or chatbot type improvements, then you may well require some liaison with your IT and your digital teams in order to intercept their roadmap, their kind of sprint activities to be able to action the change. But it's the same underlying CI process, which is that once you've made that change, you're looking to monitor what it does to the contact patterns and actually then extrapolating, what that would mean if it was actually applied across a wider set of sort of use cases. And at the end of the day, you're looking at the business outcomes. So whether that is improved satisfaction ratings, it's higher NPS advocacy scores, it's reducing demand, so taking away failure demand, or whether it's just reducing work times, handle times. Those are all the kind of positive outcomes that you're looking to to actually achieve. And that through innovation is really what the end game should actually be all about. Zander, back to you, sir.
Excellent. Paul, thank you so much for sharing that. Let me just start sharing my screen again. I mean, a couple of key takeaways there. Thank you for outing me as a history nerd, by the way. Do appreciate that. So cheers. But again, like the survivorship bias there, I think it's the key point there. As much as I can get obsessed with World War II aircraft, it is about knowing your data, knowing how to interpret your data, right? At the end of the day, what you're really looking at is numbers, and they can be, while quite finite, could be interpreted a few different ways. So just, yeah, survivorship bias is such a key point. Using the contact centers, the eyes and ears for the wider business, again, is something that we do talk about quite a bit on our webinars, but I will always repeat it because I think it's so pertinent, not only because I think it benefits us as contact center professionals, but I think it also benefits the wider business. And when you can get both of those together, it's something that we should just be doing in general, I think. And then also, like I say, the 5-point CI process, I think, is so succinct, very nice, very neat. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing it with our audience today.
Yeah, and to the audience, when anyone looking at the replay, please feel free to download the slides. And yeah, if that just gives you some hints and tips and pointers about how to actually frame the discussions you have internally, then more than happy to have helped you do that.
So before I move into the Q&A with the audience, our team in the background have let me know that quite a lot of people are sending in their tips and questions to our host directly. If you set the to everybody, it just means we can all grab it and put it in. Our team are repasting that into the chat anyway, but just as we go forward, just a brief reminder from my side. But first question asked by Louise, can AI pick up different languages? Could it be more effective with language barriers? Ordinarily, I would go to Paul here. However, I was in the audience for Zoomtopia recently, and I'm pretty confident Laura has an answer for this. So, Laura, go on.
Do you know what? I think this is one of the key innovations that AI is really uncovering, is the ability to break down language barriers amongst many different languages. So in short, the answer is yes, AI can pick up different languages. It can translate languages real time, which again can help support some conversations and help with the more effectiveness of those conversations. I think we could again do an entire webinar on this question and break that down, but it is one of the innovations, one of the great leaps forward, I think, that we've seen in the last 12 months that could be a real help when it comes to communication across multiple different countries, languages, all of that good stuff.
I think especially in EMEA as well, right? Where you've got so many different, like I say, as much as we like to say it's one whole thing, North American contact centers are slightly different to Europeans in that regard, in the sense of you could be speaking to someone just a few kilometers away, and it might be on the other side of a border who's speaking a completely different language.
Yeah,
So
and I think it also is quite specific. If you think about education or if you think about sporting event venues,
mm,
actually you get a lot of customers or students that are coming to those areas and perhaps have questions that they want answering before they arrive. They could be generic, they could be more complex. Having the ability for AI to be able to pick up those languages and either do that sort of as a self-serve language translation process, or in the background support agents in translating that conversation two-way. You've got huge opportunity. We're talking to a lot of customers in the education space and in the sporting space where, across EMEA, we are seeing this
mm.
as a really high use case. So Louise, it's a really great question, and one, like I say, we could talk about a lot.
I think the sporting use case there is so interesting, and I think it's
Mhm.
just a really good, succinct example of how we can utilize that. Paul, here we are. Here's one for you directly, asked by Seamus. Paul, the CI process you demonstrated is very similar to the Six Sigma DMAIC methodology, or what's the difference?
Okay, great spot, Seamus. Well done, sir. Yeah, no, I don't know if I was having this conversation this morning, and that is that if you're going to be a CI professional, it's really helpful to know a range of different methodologies. Six Sigma is helpful. It's helpful at driving out the closer that you can get to a 100% scenario. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you always need to apply it. There's a lot of kind of test and learn stuff, which is actually about just taking an idea and trying it and learn by doing. And I think that there's that there is some innovative companies out there that actually say it's kind of better to learn and fail than it is not to sort of try at all. So yeah, so I think it really I'm not prescriptive about what the nature of the methodology is, but I
Mm.
think you do need to have a framework to actually kind of work to.
Yeah, and I do think with something like that, I mean, we're quite fortunate in the contact center that as whilst we can go into our verticals, ultimately the contact centers touch every industry in the world, more or less. And it's whilst these wider business practices or business methodologies are useful, what you described there, at least from my side, is something a little bit more tailor-made over your
Yep.
years of
Yep.
experience within contact centers for contact center professionals, which is why I think it's so useful for our audience. So if I move on to next question coming in from Janelle. I love when people are actually directing it to a
Brilliant.
single speaker. Yeah, I don't have to do 50-50 in my head. This is great. Laura, is AI language integrated with any call center software?
So I'm from Zoom. I can only speak on behalf of Zoom. Yes, in short, we integrate AI language capabilities within the Zoom call center software and the virtual agent software.
Excellent. And I know we'll cover over some of that in your presentation
Yeah,
later.
absolutely. Yeah.
So coming in a question from Jane. I'm quite new to the AI landscape. Do you have any suggestions on where to start in my learning all about AI journey? Paul, you start with this.
Yeah, I think Laura will give Jane some really good hints and tips about identifying the appropriate start point. And I think it's really framing what is the problem that you're looking to solve. So the more specific you can make that problem statement, the clearer you are on what it is that you are trying to use, effectively automation, machine learning, a rapid prototyping way of being able to think differently about the solution. And also, I would say, bearing in mind that contact centers tend to have a lot of access to a lot of very useful information. So knowledge base information, procedure information, working guides, standard operating processes. That's very rich in terms of a learning environment for the AI algorithms to actually become more sort of effective. So basically start with the things that you already have got access to, I would suggest.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think knowledge base specifically is something that tends to go under the radar, I think, in certain contact centers. In reality, when you're trying to implement AI, it's got to learn from something about your organization, and the knowledge base is such an easy spot to start with.
Yep. Yeah, and also remember that if you are utilizing, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to analyze 100% of transactions. So those phone calls are transcribed. That becomes a dialogue flow, the same way that an email interaction and a chat is. Those dialogue flows, which are the customer agent interactions, they could be a really useful resource also.
Yeah, and I would give this question over to Laura as well, but I don't want to step on the toes of her presentation because I know what's coming. So I will leave that one there and we'll move on to the first tip from audience. So this one's coming from Matt. Remember to treat people on the phone the same as you would face to face. Without the visual cues of face to face, it's easy to forget you're talking to another person. Again, a really good tip, I think, as much as it seems quite obvious sometimes, both as contact center professionals and consumers can sometimes forget that it is so important to do that. So if I move on to the next tip coming in from Christina, use bots to assist call center staff to find answers to common questions to assist members. It is faster than reading lots and lots of manuals or articles. It's not a full solution, but significantly helps in call handling. Laura, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and it ties back to the knowledge-based conversation we were just having, because actually when I've sat in operations and watched agents try to toggle through 15 different applications of knowledge bases, processes, procedures, and what does that do? It adds time onto your average handle time. It adds quiet time, silence. It adds a really negative impact to your CSAT scores. Actually being clever with your automation and surfacing that content at the right time when we detect that agent needs it as part of their conversation, whether a voice conversation or a messaging conversation, it absolutely then helps in impacting positively all of those metrics that operationally we're trying to achieve in contact centers.
Yeah, I think, again, really good response to that tip. There's nothing else I can add, really. Paul, anything from your side?
Yeah, just to, I think it's an interesting one, Christina, because bots can do the heavy lifting for you, which is actually they can go through those reference materials, so those manuals, those standard operating procedures, and produce summaries, and the summaries can be then queried by a search engine or search query that an agent is doing to find information. So actually what the bot has done is not necessarily take you to the page in the manual with the answer, but it's actually told you where the source of the information is. So, and it may just be the summary that's sufficient to allow that particular issue to be resolved.
Really good addition. See, this is why you're on there and I'm not in your spot. You know exactly what to add to Laura's point. For the sake of time, I think I'll move on in the agenda. So, Laura, you've said a few things so far, but I think that set you up really nicely for your presentation. But
It has.
so before we do that, I've got a quick poll to launch here. So if I launch that to the audience, how do you feel about using AI in your CX journey? There's too much noise around AI. What does AI in CX actually mean? I'm cynical. I'm not sure AI will actually benefit my organization. I've been burnt before. I've tried using AI and I didn't see a return on my investment. Or I'm confused. I don't actually know where to start. Laura, what do you think you'll see from this?
So when I've asked this before, I see quite an even split. I think we've seen some answers to this already coming through in some of the questions, which is great. I'm going to talk about this in a second, so I won't dive into it, but I am really keen to hear what the audience think, and where they are in their journey might actually determine the response that they give here as well. So please do pop an answer into that poll, and we'll see what the audience are thinking.
I'll tell you what, let me end that there and I will share the results with the hosts and the audience. So we've got 29%, there's too much noise around AI, but that's second to, I'm confused, I don't actually know where to start, which again, based on the questions we were getting earlier, I'm not too surprised with that.
No, and I think hopefully we'll be able to cut through some of that noise in the presentation in a moment and help give some advice and tips around that, and maybe start to take away some of that confusion.
Yeah, and I mean, Laura, while you start sharing your presentation, I think the key thing where we are now is if you take the clock back 12 months, you were looking at a lot of theoretical applications of AI and a lot, like I say, a lot of noise around it. But I think where we are now, October 2024, we're starting to see those first movers, those practical examples about how you can actually implement it in your contact center, in your vertical. And that's, I think, key to cutting through that noise.
It is, and we've started to see those early adopters from 12 months ago seeing applications in their outcomes in a positive way. And that's what's critical for me and the passion I have in this space is it's great. Technology is absolutely, and innovation in technology is absolutely what we need to be doing. But we have customers and agents at the end of this, and you guys in the audience have businesses to run at the end of this. So that's where, for me, it's really important that we talk about how these innovations can impact in three ways: your customers, your agents, and your business.
I love that you set yourself up very nicely for your own presentation. Again, doing my job for me.
Thanks, Sander. So yeah, everybody, look, I want to talk to you around innovations that make the contact center better from a Zoom lens. And it's a great fit for us, this title, because Zoom's heart is based on innovation. Everything we do and have done here at Zoom is innovating at pace and from the feedback of our customers. And I think our best kept secret actually is we've innovated, as Xander said a couple of times, in the last 12 to 24 months around the contact space, and are continuing to focus our investment in this space. And with my job title being AI, you can, and the word of AI being out there so much in recent months and years, you can imagine where our innovation is really going. And I want to talk to you today around AI and what we're doing around AI at Zoom from an innovative way to transform CX. And we know that this is a huge topic of conversation. You open LinkedIn, somebody's pushing AI in CX conversations there. You get probably mails into your inbox around it. You turn down the street and on the bus sign, there's Samsung AI there. There's a lot of noise. But what we do know, and what we started to see, particularly in the last 12 months, as I alluded to a second ago, is we are seeing the right outcomes being generated when early adopters are innovating in their contact centers. We know that repetitive tasks can be auto-generated by AI, and we know that there are efficiency gains there. You've just had a conversation through the questions and answers with the three of us around how we see agents and the impact on agents and empowering them to really focus on that personalized connection. I think I saw a tip come in that we've not touched on yet around, agents really listening and answering and not trying to get off the phone quickly to hit their metrics. And I'm really confident AI can support with things like that. And then we've seen self-service a lot. Chatbots are not new. They're not a last 24-month thing. But what we will see with self-service is it will become much more conversational and much more humanized. And that's really important. And you'll see as we go through the presentation, from Zoom's perspective, from my perspective, it's all about how do we complement our human agents with AI whilst we're going through these innovative journeys. So back to the poll that we launched a second ago, what we're seeing in the market, back to the points, it's noisy. There is a lot of noise, as I mentioned. Everywhere you turn, every conversation you have, perhaps leadership are pushing to say we need to use AI, but they're not really giving any steer or any guidance. Perhaps, you're a bit cynical about it. Is it actually going to deliver those outcomes? Those early adopters are seeing that, but that isn't really widespread and marketed. So is it true? Is it not? You may have been burnt. You may have took a chatbot 5 or 6 years ago, and it was one of those that said, sorry, we can't help you, and took a customer around in a loop, and it had actually negative impacts on the outcomes you were driving for your operation. Or perhaps, as some of you have shared today, it is just a bit confusing, and we just need to break through the noise of actually when we're innovating and when we're using AI in CX, what do we need to be looking for? Where do we start? Because we know organizations are looking to use AI, but what value does it deliver? Now, you guys, you customers on this call, customers I speak to, really you're not looking to buy technology. And that's an odd statement coming from a technology vendor, but you're looking to buy a solution. You've got challenges in your organization, in your operation that you're trying to overcome, whether that be related to your customer metrics, to your business case that you're looking at, or to your agents. AI isn't the solution here, but it is a key to unlocking it. And I want to walk you through now a process in which you can identify how to do that. So we heard Paul talk about determining solutions and processes that you can utilize in order to innovate. I want to bring this to life a little bit within a CX journey. And I chose a retail journey because I'm sure we can all on here relate to purchasing something online from a retailer. And we've all done that and gone through perhaps a return journey. So let's bring this to life as to how this would look. And I'm going to start from a customer lens. So you recall I said at Zoom, we look at it from a customer lens, an agent lens, and then the business lens. So I'm a customer, I've made an online purchase. When I made that online purchase, it was really easy. I ordered a couple of items, added them to my basket, really simple. Managed to make the payment, added my address, and got an email confirmation to say your order's been placed. It'll be with you in 3 to 5 working days. Brilliant, really excited, really happy. At this point in the process, my CSAT is 100%. Couldn't be happier with the brand that I'm purchasing from. So day 5 comes. I'm really eager to get this purchase, but it's not arrived. I'm at work tomorrow, so I just want to chase the order and just see when it's going to land with me. I noticed when I purchased online that they had a live chat button, a digital channel, and that for me is my channel of choice. Actually, I much prefer chatting to somebody. So I go back to the website, I put in a question, where is my order? And I get a response, you're number 31 in the queue. So I sit and I wait, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and I can't leave the screen because I need to get this response. It's getting a bit of a long wait, but eventually an agent comes back. Bear with me whilst I look into this for you. To in and fro in, and after a few minutes, they come back to say, really sorry, there's a slight delay. Your order will be with you tomorrow. Okay, no problem. That's okay, but I'm not that enthralled with that part of the customer journey. It was a long wait time. I thought it was great that they had the channel I wanted to enter to, but it really didn't give me the experience that I expected. So the next day I go to work, come home. My order has been delivered as they said, which is brilliant. However, they've thrown it over the fence. So when I've opened the parcel, part of the order is smashed. Now, we've all been there with courier companies. At this point, I am fuming. I was so excited to get this. And right now, my customer satisfaction level is 0. I'm really upset. And at this point, I actually want to complain about the courier service to the brand that I've made the purchase from. I think, at this moment, emotions are high. I'd rather make a phone call. I want an answer there and then. And actually, I just want to make a return and get the product back to me in good shape. So I make the phone call rather than the live chat. I don't want to waste my time 31 in the queue on live chat. But when I get through to the IVR, what I find is some Ed Sheeran music on repeat in a really crackly tone. And I actually sit and wait for a period of time to finally get through to an agent. I get through to the agent, and honestly, they sound as flat as I do. They tell me, yeah, okay, we hear you, we hear what you wanted to do. We can refund it for you. The return process isn't that easy, but we can do a refund quite quickly. I said, fine, let's just refund it, no problem. I'd like to raise a complaint. Oh, I'm really sorry, Laura, you can't raise the complaint with me. I need to pass you to another part of the organisation to do that. So again, at this point, I'm frustrated. The CSAT level at this point of the process is very low again, 25%. I just want my refund processing, and so I can, move on with my life. They refund the money for me. It goes into my bank account. But actually, from an NPS perspective, I'm a detractor, and we know it only takes 2 bad experiences with a brand for a consumer not to return to them. So one more bad experience with this brand, and it's very unlikely I'll shop with them again. So let's look at this from the agent's perspective then. So the employee satisfaction side of things. So they're not involved in the online purchase. That bit is all swimmingly. They just get the orders through. They're in the post-sale side of things. So from an agent's perspective, I'm on live chat for the day. I get this chat coming through. I'm actually having to manage 5 different conversations at once, as well as some social media in the background. It's really difficult. I'm constantly backwards and forwards with the same content. I've got many screens open in front of me. I'm trying to pull that content and copy and paste it back. It's quite a difficult task, and it's disappointing because I was promised that when I moved from the phones to this live chat channel, it would simplify things for me as an employee. I wouldn't have to be back to back on phone calls. I could have a much more relaxed pace and actually be really delivering added value to my customer. But I'm not able to do that, and I'm not in a good place with that in my role. Fast forward a couple of days, after I've dealt with this customer on live chat and told them their order's going to come, my role's actually, I'm then in the contact center on the voice channel, and I get this call through. I can see that they've been in contact with us from live chat previously. I can see that there's been on the wall boards are red and there's been long wait times, and this customer is really frustrated. And honestly, I'm flat. I've not had a break in the 4 hours that I've been here. I'm due to go on my lunch hour, and it's just been flat out back-to-back calls. They want to make a replacement, but I know that I don't have the process or the ownership around that process to do that. And that frustrates me because I just want to do what the customer wants, and they want to make a complaint, and I can't do that for them, and I have to hand that off. So again, from an employee perspective, in the parts that they're involved in, it's really, really negative. And then we might start to see high agent attrition. We start to see actually customer satisfaction impacted because employee satisfaction is down. And that has a roll-on effect on the business metrics. So where can we use AI to innovate? At what points in this journey do we bring AI innovation to play in order to make this experience better both for the customer and for the agent? Well, AI everywhere isn't really the solution here. But if we look at chasing an order and where the customer enters into a live chat web channel, and if we think about what the customer said, I had to wait in a queue for Q31, and we think about the agent and their frustration because they having to deal with a lot of chats and a lot of windows at the same time. Actually, here is an ideal place to innovate, where perhaps we could use automation from a customer perspective and integrate that into our order management system and our CRM. So they, at the time that they want to come into that channel, can do what they need to do. And that impacts your first contact resolution. That increases your customer satisfaction. And actually, AI could complete that end-to-end journey for you there, chasing that order. It could tell you, yes, Laura, your order is going to be with you tomorrow, without a need at all for any human interaction. But of course, if you wanted to speak to a human, you can do. And from an agent perspective, they're then taking those monotonous generic inquiries away. So when the customer does come to me as an agent, I'm able to really help with something valuable. But not only that, I can use innovation in AI to surface knowledge-based content and processes to me. So I'm not having to run around 15 different screens. There's no time where I'm not answering the customer, and I can deliver them their first contact resolution at the time they need that. And again, if you think about the voice side of things, if you think about from a customer lens, sitting in the IVR for a period of time, crackly hold music, again, there are opportunities here to bring in AI so the customer can self-serve that return. They can request the refund. But if they are emotive and want to speak to a human, absolutely, let's pass that off to a human, where again, we can support that agent in real-time sentiment analysis. We know the customer's upset. Let's push them a next best action in how to move that conversation forward and change that customer from a detractor into someone that's going to be promoting this organization and the service that they've received. And that's just a very small fraction of some of the AI innovations that we can bring to life in a small part of this journey, where we'll then start to see actually that CSAT will improve, and overall we see improvements in that NPS piece as well. Now, everyone is responsible for great customer experience. And I wanted to put this out there because actually you may be sat in the contact center, which perhaps, a few years ago was seen as a cost center, and now it's the hub of great CX. CX. But it's not just your responsibility, it's the responsibility of people that are customer facing, team managers, but also those people in the back offices where processes and workflows may go, and again, AI automation and innovation will support in that real time and post event in order to make that smooth journey for those customers, regardless of when they're coming in and interacting with your brand, whether that be contact center or they walk into a retail branch store in that retail example. That it is responsible for everybody to deliver that great customer experience. And the innovations that we've got with technology and AI mean that that one customer journey can be touched in the contact center and the retail branch staff will know exactly what's happened and vice versa. So it's a smooth transition, again, impacting positively from your NPS scores, your CSAT scores, your employee experience. And this is where we talk about an AI first total experience. So we're empowering not only customers to self-serve, but we're also empowering your employees to deliver great customer experience. We're taking away the heavy lift so they can really focus on listening to the customer and delivering that superb customer experience. From an AI perspective, we can then start to use the data. We heard about the importance of data from Paul earlier to predict customer needs, to predict agent needs, and start surfacing and delivering those before the customer or the agent come asking. Automate those routine tasks and queries, but ultimately humanize those engagements, because nobody wants to speak to a bot, but they want the efficiency and the delivery and the innovation that AI can bring. So AI and CX provides ultimately incredible agents that lead to a happy and industry-leading CX proposition for you and your brands, and customers that then become promoters and repeat business for you in your organizations. And we know that 88%, according to Gartner, of customer journeys start in self-service, but they then touch multiple channels. And this is why when I'm talking about not only contact center, but retail branches, websites, it might be email, it might be messaging, we need that seamless communication for that customer, regardless of the point they come in that journey. And data and AI and innovations in those spaces are what we're going to be able to see more streamlined customer experiences. And if you adopt those, you'll start to see brands, particularly certain brands and with great customer experiences, retain customers, drive their bottom line revenue up, and ultimately have the customer experience that the rest of us are going to be envious of. So give your customers more flexibility. Don't hold them to a specific path. If we need to look at that customer journey and determine those solutions where we can innovate and adapt, as we know that us as consumers and our customers are adapting with technology innovations, then let's make that happen. Think about some of the ways in which Paul said earlier on how to do that. Let's drive that innovation time piece by piece, rather than thinking of it as a big change that we have to do in one foul swoop. And prioritize human connection. We can use AI. We can get customers interacting with AI. We can innovate with AI, but let's really drive that human connection and let's personalize that, whether the customer's speaking with a bot or whether we're helping human agents in our contact centers as well. And that is what Zoom customer experience is about. We are here to understand, where are the pain points? What solutions are you looking to drive? What does that future good look like? And then where can we support with our innovation in order to drive those business outcomes for organizations? Thank you, Zander.
Thank you, Laura. Look, really great presentation. I love the handcrafted example on there as well. I mean, it's something that I think all of us can relate to. We're not just contact center professionals, we're also consumers as well. I heard one recently with a major telecommunications brand in the UK that I'm not going to name here. They did sponsor Arsenal for years, so you could probably piece that together in the audience. But again, just really great examples, some really innovative ways to actually implement AI there. And again, like I said before, it's practical examples. And I think that's the key takeaways there. I mean, I'm trying to remember the sentence you used. It was AI isn't the solution to sorry, AI isn't the solution, but it can be the key to unlocking it. I think that is such
Exactly.
a it's such a succinct, pertinent sentence to use, and I think it summarizes your presentation really nicely.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think, look, if there's any takeaway from this, the technology and the innovation of the technology is there. What is really important, and hopefully this has come through in this webinar, is where are you now? What are those challenges? And let's build what that solution needs to look like in order to deliver those business outcomes. The technology, we can fit to that. The innovations, we can make work with that. But let's really understand, what do you want that solution to look like?
Yeah, well, I think you've again you've segued me quite nicely into our final poll of the day, which is: would you like to see a demonstration of the Zoom solution? I mean, like I said, you've shown quite a few things off during that presentation, Laura, but what could someone expect to see from a Zoom product demo?
So, look, when we're doing a product demonstration, we are very much looking to do it personalized to your brand. So, when we're talking to you, we really want to understand your organization, your business pain points, where you're striving to get to before we even show the platform, because we will then personalize that demonstration to you and your needs. The Zoom CX platform is huge. There are so many features, functions, capabilities, and we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about you and what's driving your business outcomes. And then we will consult on what parts of the platform, we think we need to demonstrate at the time. And I think, if you think about some of the questions that came up earlier, around the can AI support language capability and things like that, that's some of the really impressive things that we can demonstrate in the demonstrations. So if there are specific areas that you're looking at, that's where we have a full conversation, holistic conversation, to understand your business before we then tailor that demonstration personally to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. Like we said earlier, not all contact centers are the same. Obviously, there are different verticals, different pain points, different metrics that
Yep.
need to be tracked by them. And it's, I've been on product demos before where it's effectively, here's a one size fits all solution, but ultimately
Yeah.
that's not what you want. That's not what the customer wants. It is a whole different situation. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly that.
perfect. So that moves us nicely on to top tips and questions from your presentation. So here's one from William. How to measure the containment rate of an AI when it's been built on top of any self-service channel such as voice, chat, email, etc. What are the key metrics to measure the effectiveness of, on the AI on self-service? Laura, your
Yeah.
job title would indicate you'd be quite good at this.
Yeah, and look, I've spent a few years looking at these metrics and how to improve and optimize them. Naturally, containment rate is a huge one. If you're looking to drive self-service, you want to be looking for the bot to be able to contain that experience end to end within the automation. Now, when you're building bots and you're looking at those customer journeys, naturally, you might have journeys where you want to augment your automation. So what do I mean by that? You might want to use the bot to data gather the majority of the journey, but you know that actually the experience would be best then handed off to a human agent. So at Zoom, we look at that data as well. So what is contained, but also what is handed off by design. Now, underpinning those, and what is really important, is first contact resolution and customer satisfaction. Because if you build a bot where you contain customers, but they're not getting the resolution to their query and they're not satisfied, what you will see is a high repeat rate into your organization. They will call the contact center, they will call you out on social media publicly. So it's all well and good driving one metric of containment rate and self-service, but you have to do that in the right way.
Again, great answer. Paul, anything to expand on there?
Well, just a slightly different perspective, not necessarily about containment and automation, but actually be clear on what the role of the channel is. So back in a time long ago, about 10 years before chatbots were invented, I worked with an airline, and we had our best results from using live chat. And how we proved it was, on a sales journey, then either the customer online could try and self-serve, so try and make a booking, or we could target whether they wanted some sort of digital support, so i.e. a chat session. And when that chat took place, the hack was we actually put a cookie on the device. And what that meant was we could measure 7 days after the chat what had happened to that customer. Had they made the booking, and on the service side, had they been able to complete the task that they were trying to do online. And we could compare against a control group of customers who've been through a similar buying journey or a similar service journey, but hadn't had the chat. And what we could prove on the sales side was what we called assisted sales. Order values were higher, conversion rate was higher. So we had a commercial metric that meant that the agents were actually always being able to add value. And that's when the surveying that we did through the chat platform, we had really high response rates, 30-something%, and therefore that was a significant sample, and we had really high scores and lots of qualitative feedback. So yeah, so I do agree that through AI you can now automate things, but actually remember what the primary purpose is that you're trying to achieve. And actually there sort of could be a role, as Laura says, to augment that and actually present that to an agent to sort of seal the sort of deal, as it were.
Great answer. Really good, guys. Great debate. Really happy. Well done. I'm so happy with this webinar. Like I say, it's one of the favorites I've hosted. You guys are great at answering these questions. Really well done. Next question in from Christina. We spend significant time creating reports for our senior leadership team and agents. This is currently a manual task using reports from our phone system. Any tips on what solution might be available to start automating this? Either of you have a point to raise here? Paul?
Sorry, that's me, is it? Okay. So reporting is always an area of interest in contact centers, and we actually need to remember we're very highly metricated as a department. So therefore, there are lots of data points, and the technology should therefore be able to provide information that can be used for kind of analytics. Potentially what this question might play to is then where those reports go. So in other words, is there a wider infrastructure, a kind of customer warehouse that then there are some BI tools being used to actually sort of generate reports? And that's where you really want a degree of kind of flexibility to be able to not only slice and dice the data, but actually drill into it in order to use that as the source of continuous improvement.
I love it when you link it back to your presentation as well earlier. Very nice. Laura, anything to add there?
So I think reporting and analytics is always a difficult one because it's so personal to the individual, to the operation, through the brand. And I think having the flexibility to build reporting in a way that you want to present that back, whether that to be to your team, to your leadership, is hugely important. And obviously accurate reporting as well, and the ability for that to be immediately available. So there are conversations that here at Zoom we can have around that. If you've ticked yes, so you want to see the demo, that's absolutely something again we can talk about and personalize to your conversation.
Excellent. Well, I think that, sorry, Paul, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, so just Christina, I think the acid test is if you're having to spend time in Excel creating reports, I would suggest giving sort of Laura a sort of call and actually take up the sort of demo.
Perfect. I'll tell you what, we've got a couple of minutes left, so I'll quickly breeze through some of these tips. I won't have time to speak to our panelists here, but we will make sure we get to them. So using AI to predict customer needs and agent needs, great tip. One in from Jane, you must ensure your agents are actively listening to your customers and not be so keen to just answer/address and get off the phone. Again, great point for any contact center. Doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter the vertical.
Yep.
Great tip, Jane. So without further ado, I'll move on to the final portion of the webinar. What did you like best? In 1 or 2 words in the chat, please pop in what you liked about today. We love doing these webinars. We are planning our 2025 schedule already. Really excited to get going with that, but we always love to hear from you. So please do let us know in the chat here what you like best about today. Whilst you're doing that, we've got just enough time for the winning tip. So this has come in from Christina, which Here we are. We mentioned it earlier. Great tip, Christina. Congratulations. One of our team will be in contact with you for winning, and
Yay.
get your gift card in the post or email to you, actually, I think. Last bits from our side. As always, after a Call Centre Helper webinar, there will be a survey that goes to you. It's 3 questions long. It's so important for us to make sure that we're still delivering the content that you guys want to hear about. Please do respond to it. Really helps us out. Like I mentioned before, replay and slides will be available this afternoon on callcenterhelper.com. Next webinars in the series, we've got 2 more for 2025. This is 2024. This is the last time you'll see my face on these webinars. But Rachel is hosting creating great customer relationships in November, and Megan is closing out the year with the future of contact centers in 2025. One last thing from my side, those of you who are in EMEA, we will be at Calling Contact Center Expo this year, same as Zoom. So if you do want to say hello to us or Laura, please do stop by. That would be amazing to see you. It's always a pleasure when we can. And we also launched our 2024 annual report. You can find that on callcenterhelper.com. Zoom collaborated with us. Paul has delivered his insights, so you two are quite well placed for that. So again, thank you for your contributions there. And you can download it on callcenterhelper.com. I believe one of my colleagues has just put a link in the chat. But that's the top of the hour. I've spoken way too quickly at the end there. But thanks so much to Paul for joining us today. Paul, thank you.
You're very welcome, Xander.
And Laura, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
And
lovely
thanks-
working with you, Laura. Great stuff.
And you, Paul.
Thank
Really
you.
good. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you in the audience as well. We couldn't have done it without you. So cheers. Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.